Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's see if I can get this right. All
Okay.
right. So how are you and your Bakoshi balls?
They're just, thriving and ever fuzzy. And how are your buddies?
They're excellent. I really enjoyed seeing what the worms did to that. It was pretty
Right?
cool. Yeah.
It's
I
a
love
little
always
surprising.
experimenting, and I will say that a lot of my worm farms have taken off because of some of the inoculation that you gave me a few months ago. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Yeah,
Thank you.
especially the rose beetles. They're I think most people on here know that those are pretty expensive. So to be able to get them and then breed them saved me a lot of money. So appreciate that.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, I kind of understand why that's happening more. So that's going to be part of a down the road disclosure. But yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Brian, for demonstrating that.
Absolutely.
So what are we going to talk about today? Are we going to go into a little bit of history about who you are and how you arrived at your living soils sort of like passion? And also I'd like to hear a little bit about how we first became acquainted through your education or your Education Over Egos platform, and kind of maybe start there and work our way into the present. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay.
I'm talking about worm farming today with rabbits, using a specific rabbit called a Lionhead rabbit. So I'm excited to get into that, and I actually have him hanging out with me right here, so I can kind of show um, how intelligent they are, and they're really fun to just have around the house. I've been able to actually get mine not only to be potty trained, but to understand to only poop and pee in the pots. So
Wow.
there's all these worm bins downstairs in the basement, and he can literally go all the way up to my bedroom, all the way down to the basement. And obviously, I have, my kids enjoy him. I have two little boys, 4 and 5, so having a bunny in the house is kind of fun, and he just kind of runs around and does his own thing. So we really enjoy
Wow.
that, and it improves the soil. And we can get into all that. But so for those that don't know, my name is Bryan Wachsman, 303 Organic Cannabis on Instagram. And I really started out, I guess, more in the underground market. You know, sometimes I'm hesitant to say that, but it is the truth.
Me too.
Yeah. So I learned off of friends and peers and made a lot of mistakes. I'm not ashamed to say that. I lost a lot of crops, full tents before and stuff like that. And, that's, I guess, when I also noticed that you really have to have the same vision in cultivating cannabis as your business partners. Because if you don't, it's really hard. I even noticed, like, back in the day, I mean, we were just growing in like a basement sized tent, and the plants really started to decline in health because of the friction of all, like, we were arguing back and forth basically on how to grow the plants, and we wanted to improve the grow, and we just weren't seeing eye to eye. And that's so I started to take a little bit of the money that I had, and I signed up for Dr. Lane Ingham's courses on Soil Food Web.
Okay.
And they were pretty expensive, but I felt like it was well worth the time. And my son had just been born, so I had a lot of time, obviously, to kind of like sit around and grow my plants and educate myself. And so once I started to learn about her methods and that kind of stuff, she had a private chat room where you could talk to other students, and people would talk about other up and coming. And this is maybe 8 or 9 years ago, so it wasn't like everybody knew really even what we were talking about back then, and myself included. I didn't really. I mean, I was taking the course, but it was still really hard for me. And then that's when somebody told me about a guy named Jeff Lowenfels, which I'm sure everybody knows about now. And I read his first book, Teaming with Microbes, and that kind of broke it down for a farmer from Georgia type. I'm not that of an academic, if you will, but I do love to experiment and do research and that kind of thing. So his book was able to break that stuff down, and I started to play around with the soil food web. There's even a gentleman here in Colorado that's pretty well known in your neck of the woods that does really good work with like worms and worm farming and stuff. So I actually drove the 90 minutes one way to get that specific inoculation, and I started playing around with that. And that's when I really started to improve my cannabis skills. cultivation skills. I was then able to get a job in a commercial facility here in Denver, Colorado. And that's really where the organic part started to come out in me, is because I found out real quickly that even though we were, you know, all the marketing and everything that we were doing was supposedly medical, there was really nothing medical about the facility that was being run. And there was a lot of things that were being sprayed and that kind of stuff. Eagle 20, forbid, avid. And I personally know that Eagle 20 was being spread late into flower. So those were certain things that, you know, when you first come on, you know, this is your dream job in a way. So you don't want to rock the boat. And to be honest, I didn't really know what Eagle 20 was. You know, I just knew that for whatever reason, the head grower was really big on me not applying it. So then when I started to do some research and stuff, I started to rock the boat a little bit. And then, of course, you kind of know how that happens sometimes. And I had to find another place. And that's where I really started educating people, because I was just amazed at, you know, how brilliant some of these cannabis cultivators were, but they really didn't know really about, like, they knew about brand names, I should say, right? They knew about brand name amendments, but they weren't really talking about, like, plants. Like, what is really, especially on the microbial level, it didn't seem like anybody really knew about that. So that's when I joined these social media sites for cannabis. The first one in Denver was something called Mass Roots. And so I was on there trying to educate and made a little name for myself on there. And then there was this other thing called the Doobie app. And that was really where I felt like I was able to gain traction, is because it was cannabis based. It was gamified, so people really enjoyed it at first. I don't know if did you ever try that or anything? Any of those apps?
No.
Yeah,
No.
well, like many things with cannabis, it was probably a good idea, but they both companies ran out of money and stuff. So that's when I had this whole organic cannabis thing. I brought it to Instagram, and somebody already had that name, so I just put the 303 in front of it, and off I went. And since then, I've seen, you know, the dark side of what people are doing behind the scenes, to now where a lot of people are really wanting to clean up the industry, and growers themselves want to be proud of the product that they're farming. And I would say, you know, 8 or 9 years ago, back when that was going on, it was really kind of an inside secret that the big commercial farmers would never never smoke the stuff that they were growing for, you know, some company, some big brand. They would usually back then buy it from, like, the underground guys, because we were still craft. Yeah, we were craft, and, you know, we couldn't compete against the dispensaries back then. So how do we, you know, we had to improve on quality. That was really the only thing. You know, it's not like we have a bunch of money. So how do we change that? And that's really where I dove into the whole, like, organic idea.
Thanks for articulating what is kind of like a movement that we still get to be, like, creative within, because, you know, we've gone through that motion of, like, answering to the quality issue at a very early stage in this game. So it's kind of cool. Congratulations.
And I would say that, you know, these big time farmers, or big time owners of these farms, when they do understand this concept, I really think that, you know, as these years go by, their product is really going to stand out. And I think
we have yet to discover, how she's going to express herself given the right conditions. Like, it's night and day.
Yeah. And there's a lot of brilliant minds out there that are just popping up, you know, that maybe 5 years ago wouldn't have shown their face, 3 years ago wouldn't have shown their face. So if those people are watching, you know, come on out of the woodworks and let's discuss things, because I assure you that it's not, I don't feel nervous about talking about cannabis anymore at all. Like, this kind of stuff. You know? And
it extends beyond, I mean, she's teaching us how to grow food and how to sort of get realigned with our natural environment on such a profound level. And she's been such an instrumental goddess in teaching young men how to farm and how to garden and how to, you know, pay attention to their natural world. I mean, what a blessing. And also, like, as far as, like, not being afraid, but also realizing that it's through cooperation and, like, communication that we get to learn the most. Like, I've learned so much from you, Bryan, even stepping into your basement that day. I was like a little kid in a candy shop, and seeing your bunnies and how amazing they are, I was like, I need to know more about this. And just in that little bit of time, I picked up so much knowledge just by being, you know, in communication with you. So thank you.
Well, that's really been my goal for like probably like the last 3 years, is just to share knowledge, because I know that you've helped me in tremendous ways. Friends of yours that I now follow on Instagrams, you know, just following people and seeing what they're doing, and it just really helps with the time frame. And I can't imagine if I would have had this like 10 years ago, if we would have had this kind of platform, how quickly, you know, it's the guys in their early 20s that are actually taking over the cannabis industry, and I have no shame in saying that, or hats off to them, because
hats off. Yeah,
they should be you know, using technology and educating themselves on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
From my background, I used to play online poker, and it was kind of the same way. It was these young kids that really understood technology, that were able to educate themselves to beat these old guards that played poker their whole life but didn't see that many hands. And then I see that same way, especially with like the solventless guys and that kind of stuff. They're able to educate themselves on a whole nother level. So they might not have been farming for as long, but their educational level is far superior. And hats off to the, you know, the guys that are out there that are continuing to educate themselves and sharing that knowledge. I know that some of them are not going to always share their secrets, but I do see some of them sharing like tips and tricks and stuff like that. And, you know, that goes a long way too. I mean, I'm sure you know as well. Like, I just want to smoke the best and the cleanest. It keeps me sane. I mean, it is medicine for me. And if I didn't have it, I probably would be a different person. I smoke all day, every day. Maybe that's not the best, but it is something that keeps me focused. And I will say that I'm able to get a lot of things done, and I'm very productive. And I know that I wish my mom was watching this, because I know back in the day, she used to think that just because you smoked a lot of cannabis, you're sitting around watching TV. You know, I don't even have TV, cable, that kind of thing. I'm very focused on education. And so, you know, hopefully if somebody ever sees that, I could tell my mother that people are successful and use cannabis as they used to pump me full of like Ritalin and Adderall. My mom would literally, you know, I would have to take it and show her my tongue and the whole thing. And the reality is the cannabis was kind of doing the same thing. And now I've taken it to where I can really focus. I've been doing actually a lot more writing and educational things, and that's really helping like really open this whole new world that I didn't really knew that I could do. So there's some educational things that are coming out that I've been working on behind the scenes, and this COVID thing has really kind of helped Tina and myself, who are going to do a lot of these live educational classes, and we still are going to do that. So
we are.
I guess that's like a little plug there, but you know, when we're allowed to really focus and find things, you know, there's a couple places that are starting to open up. So I think in the next few weeks, we might be able to make some moves, but please shoot out to us and like the DM, or reach out to us. I mean, in the DM and stuff on who you would like to see. I'm all about reaching out, and you know, I like having and listening to other people. So it would be great. You know, you and I can obviously be a part of it, but it really would be great to be a community.
And Bryan, you're so talented at that. So I went to before the COVID thing hit, we were engaged in planning this out, and I went to a Instagram class that Bryan gave, and I was really struck by how, you know, he had this room full of people, and he was definitely giving us knowledge, but at the same time he was drawing us into this participatory event that was, you know, in truth amplifying everybody that was there. And it's a new way for us to be in society with each other, to be on that level of like win-win, like you do, when you do better, I do, when we all do better, we all do better, basically, right? And it's the practice of that. And Bryan, you are so good at it. You're just a natural when it comes to community. So I'm really thrilled to be working with you.
Well, I just and everybody that I associate myself with, I just try to always be as genuine as possible, and I think that carries through. And shout out to Daguerre Forget of Melavora. He would be helping us out with his whole dab bar. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but it is first class. So we want to bring class to some of these educational events. There are some that I've been to around the country that I just feel like I want to class it up a little bit. I think that we're going to be able to do that with everybody here in Denver.
I do too. I really do. I mean, it's cross-platform, cross-pollination. Let's, let's be microbial about it.
Right.
Let me see that rabbit.
Yeah. All right. So I've always kind of had an affinity for certain things in life, and I've always named my rabbits after like it's kind of embarrassing saying like gangsters and stuff. So this is actually Freeway Ross, or the real Rick Ross. For you out there that don't know, the rapper Rick Ross just stole this guy's name and made a bunch of money off of him. So shout out to the real Rick Ross. His name is Freeway Rick Ross. That's why I named this bunny after. He's the smartest bunny I've actually ever raised. Like I was saying at the beginning of this, he is potty trained, but he's next level potty trained to where he can go up and down my house, all the way up to, the third floor of my bedroom, down to the basement where he poops and pees on his own. And he loves he really loves green beans, but I gave him a bunch, and he loves like bok choy and Brussels sprouts and stuff. So I make sure that I feed him organics, and then he goes downstairs and he poops in the worm bins for me. And so I'm using four composting worms, right? Can you? Oh, I guess I got to hold them up here. So I'm using 4 compost. This is a Lionhead. I should say that. They're one of the smartest rabbit breeds out there. And you can almost kind of like this one. If you get a special one, you can get one where they're basically like kind of like a dog. Like I can be like, come on, Rick, or my boys like to call him Rick. So Rick, let's go, boy, and he'll run up the stairs and do his thing. But he is basically feeding the rest of my basement. And what I'm doing down in the basement is worm farming for living soil and just for, my own enjoyment, I guess. So
How big is your bunny?
He's not that big.
He's a little guy.
Yeah, and I think the breed was created in the 90s. So as far as I understand, that's not really that long ago.
Yeah.
So they're still kind of little rabbits. I really highly recommend you guys worm farm with rabbits, but take the time and spend a little extra money on getting a Lionhead, because the white dwarfs are actually not that smart. It's going to be pretty hard to get them potty trained, and their pee is actually kind of ridiculous as far as like ammonia and stuff when it builds up. So you're probably going to have some issues.
Do you have to compensate for that in your worm bins, or does it just completely take care of itself?
Well, I have so many worm bins. I think I have like 15 going. So he'll just run around. Like he just does his thing. So he'll poop in this one, or he'll poop in this one.
Really?
And if I notice he hasn't pooped in a certain one for a while, I'll just put treats or hay or something in that one, and then he'll
okay.
Yeah. But the goal is to feed. Oops.
Yeah, my daughter had a pet rabbit when she was a baby, and it bit. But these guys don't bite, huh?
I wouldn't say that, but they're really intelligent, and they're
you can have a
communication
really with them. Yeah.
So I mean, as long as you're sweet to them, they're gonna be sweet to you. As long as you don't scare them or anything.
Yeah.
But I have had a Lionhead that I used to call Griselda Blanco. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. But she would bite for whatever reason. But that's why I actually called her or named her that because she was a feisty little bitch. But another smart rabbit. But she would bite it now and then.
Oh, I love this so much.
So
does he beg for food?
Can you guys see that?
Is that a red wiggler?
This is actually a big one. This is a European nightcrawler. So we're using the bunny poop to feed 4 main composting worms. So we use the red wigglers, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. That's like when you Google composting worms, that's what usually pops up. And those work like the top 4 of the pot itself. And so when those red wigglers are churning things, the goal is to get about 2,000 of them at the top there, and they're going to churn about 7 pounds of worm casting for you every single month.
What?
Yeah, these things are ferocious eaters. As long as you're feeding them, I mean, these are all optimal conditions. But again,
Yeah.
if you're using like, again, you know, bunnies eat all day and poop all day. So if you're just constantly feeding that worm bin, and if you can get a smart enough bunny, he'll do it for you, right? So I'm up here working, typing and stuff. He's down here feeding the worm bin. You know, back in the day, I had him over. I built like a cage that was over the worm bin. But
Yeah.
again, you run into a lot of those urea, ammonia, nitrogen problems where it's just, I think salts and stuff too build up in that pee. So if you just put them, and to me, that's not really humane as well. Like if I'm gonna have an animal, I want to enjoy it. You know, I enjoy having the bunny around.
Yeah.
It's fun and stuff. So I don't really like that method, and I know that a lot of people do it that way, where they just put the bunnies over, and to me, it seems kind of like a factory. So I might not be getting like I'm sure sometimes he might be like pooping on the side of a, you know, but for the majority of everything and for how much he poops, it is no work. He just does his thing.
Wow. And there is crosstalk that happens between, you know, animals and people. Like, you know, I have goats and I have new Muscovy ducks, and it's like this training process. And then they become like, the communication that happens is really, truly amazing. Like they can integrate into your lifestyle.
It's good.
Look at that. Oh my God.
So the next worms that we use are the European night crawlers.
Okay.
And those, that's actually this fatter worm here.
Okay.
Can you guys see that? Oh, there we go.
Now I can.
Yeah, so they really, really wiggle.
Wow.
Really all compost worms kind of wiggle, but they work the middle of the pots, and they work in conjunction with the African night crawlers. And the reason why they're called night crawlers is because at night they come to the top and feed. So the reason why I like introducing those into, you know, as long as probably like a 20-gallon air pot, fabric pot, there's enough room where all the worms can, you know, work their little area, and there's not any competition. I have heard if you're using like a smaller pot, that sometimes there is competition, or some of them might even like kind of push each other out. Or I believe it was Rachel Gajasana was saying that she's seen like worms eat other worms. I've always just had huge pots as big as I can, because I view it as like the stomach for the plant. And I try to have as big of enough stomach and healthy of enough stomach as possible. But if you're doing like a 3-gallon or 5-gallon, something like that, I could see you having issues, obviously, because they like to burrow, right? And so when they're working like the middle of those pots, they're working in conjunction with those African night crawlers. And African night crawlers are another real workhorse with the red wigglers, but they're working the middle of the pot. And the Europeans compost things as well, but not as fast. Okay. But they are... for me, at least, I can get them to be a little bit fatter, and I know that they're going up and down as the days go by, building those dissolved oxygen channels for me, which is extremely beneficial, just to keep the plant. I'm sure everybody here has like aerated their yard before, their front yard, try to improve like the health of their grass. If you live in an HOA like me, so you don't get fined, that's kind of what they're doing, right? They're going up and down, and they're aerating, building those dissolved oxygen channels. And then at the bottom of the pots is something that I've really just been working probably like the last year. And these are called Alabama jumpers, or I'm from Georgia, so I like to call them the Georgia jumpers. And they work the bottom of those pots, and they really, they work almost as an earthworm, but they do compost as well. And so if you have like really hard compacted soil, clays, just buy yourself a lot of Alabama jumpers and give yourself some time. And they'll reproduce for themselves. If they're all these composting worms, if the conditions are optimal, they will usually double their entire population in 90 days.
Wow.
So you can really start to build, you know, especially if you're in raised beds, you can really start to build quite a little worm population for yourself. And
what's the lifespan of these? Because I read somewhere that they take 2 years to mature, or is that not true?
No, they take about 2 to 3 months to mature.
Okay.
It's said that they can live up to 4 years, but I would imagine most of them are living between 1 and 2.
Okay.
But again, they're multiplying constantly. And the cool thing about worm farming too is you're never really going to see a bunch of dead worms, because they're 90% water. So as soon as they die, the microbes and everything, if everything's healthy, I mean, it just returns it back to that soil. So like Tina, when you gave me that, I mean, it was like a bag, right? She was able to give me a bag when I got back from Oklahoma, and I was able to inoculate 100-gallon worm farm that I had used probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years before that. So it had been alive, but obviously it died. So when Tina gave me that, I was able to inoculate this entire 100-gallon from the top, and I would just water that in and then give itself time. And these red wigglers started to reproduce over time. And then I reached out to my buddy Frank up in New York. So shout out to him with Urban Castings. He was with us, Tina, at Chris Trump's, great guy. I ordered worms from him, some of the red wigglers and the Europeans, and I haven't looked back since. So it doesn't take a lot to really start this. So if you guys, if you have peers or something like that, just help each other out. Just a little bag full and some time, and you can change how you grow. Tina probably saved me maybe a year, 2 years of me trying to rebuild everything that I had, or a trip up to Fort Collins, I guess, to see, the buddy that everybody knows up there.
Can we mention him? You'd mentioned him earlier. Is he mentionable? We'll get this later too.
I know him as like the worm guy. And the only here's, if you guys can figure this out.
Oh, I know who John
Budweiser. Yeah. I have no idea. He has a company name and he has a phone number, but he never answered it.
I know. Exactly. I know who you're talking about. Okay, so I'll get a list out to all these people that you're mentioning. We'll make sure that there's going to be something attached to all these. Yeah. There's a lot of.
But I'm worm farming now too. So.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. Can we get worms from you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
And for people in this, it's not like I'm not trying to. I'm doing it for enjoyment, but I do want to sell some eventually because I'll have a bunch. But yeah, if somebody's listening today, if they would like to get some, if you're probably willing to pay like shipping or something, I'll ship them out to you.
Maybe it would be rolled into the contest we're doing too. We can put.
There we go. Maybe I'll throw in some worms and maybe some seeds from Duke.
Okay. Oh my God. Yes.
Free Duke Diamond for you guys that don't know. Shout out to Duke Diamond, unfortunately. It'd be great to do like a little giveaway with some of his gear.
Yeah. Yes. Honor. Oh, that's beautiful. All right. So that just got added to the pot. Oh my God. So tell me about the process of building these bins. Like go through a little bit of it step by step, just because I feel like. So what do you start with? What's your starting material?
Really just sphagnum. I start off with that. If I know it's going to be there for a really long time, I'll put maybe a little bit of lava rock on the bottom. But I don't like to do a lot because, like I said, I am farming with the Georgia jumpers, and those are going to the bottom. And I have noticed with some of my pots sometimes that I see a bunch of, it just doesn't seem like it's as healthy. So I don't know if the worms are dying down there, or I guess I would have to still experiment. But
have you added lab?
I have before, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because I had kind of a similar issue with that bin I'm running, and I added about a cup of lab, and it completely did away with any kind of funk.
Yeah, and I think when you start, and even when you start like a raised bed, that there's going to be like this little hurdle, if you will, of a fungus mats. So if you can reach out to a peer, if you could, if you're really forward-thinking farmer, I would have. By the way, this is something easy you can do is with these springtails. These are super cheap. You can get these at like, wait, you guys see these? You can get this at like a reptile place. But these are decomposers that are going to work in a symbiotic relationship with your composting worms, and they're going to break organic matter down into basically carbon. And we all know that carbon is like the currency of the soil food web. So the more carbon that we have being exchanged, everything that's going on within the soil food web, the healthier everything is, the healthier whatever plant is that you put into the soil, whether it's a tomato or a cannabis plant. And that's something that I feel like Tina, myself, and other people that have been on Tina's Instagram show really believe in, is that you just feed the soil, right? It doesn't really matter about the plant anymore. We're not really focused on synthetics or chelated nutrients anymore. We want things to be broken down. We want to be top feeding, knowing that it's not going to, you know, some of these amendments sometimes might not even feed that flip, right? And we know that, and we're breaking down and we're feeding for next year, and we're thinking, and that's the part that I really like about this on a larger scale for commercial cannabis cultivation, is that a lot of the people that grow in this manner are forward thinking, and they're thinking like, okay, what am I going to do 2 years from now, 3 years from now? How, you know, how good are my beds going to really be? And there's guys out there that have really gotten the fungal aspect through the roof, where not only do they have a cover crop growing, but they have just a beautiful bouquet of mushrooms growing out of their raised beds. And, you know, I guess I probably shouldn't say any specific names or anything, but you guys probably know who those guys are. And if you go to their Instagram, you can really see that the healthier, the almost like the more diverse things that are growing out of that cover crop, the healthier that plant is always going to be, right? And so the more diversity that you can put into your raised beds and your pots, the easier it's going to be to farm cannabis. And that's really the goal at the end of the day, right? Is to grow cannabis in a healthy and holistic manner, and give yourself more time. So with living soil, like, we don't pH anything, right? We're using worms to basically do that for us. And if there is a pH issue, the worms will tell you, because they'll evacuate the pots. So it's pretty easy to tell if something's horrific is going on. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're growing with Mother Nature. So it's really kind of hard to screw up unless you start trying to add more things. Or, you know, when a couple of years when we first started doing this, some of my peers were kind of like, okay, so now what am I doing? You know, they felt like they had to always tend their plants. And I always said this in my talks and stuff. I would joke with them, like, go outside, you know, spend time with your family, stuff like that. Because I feel like as cannabis farmers, sometimes we can get caught up in, those are our babies, those are our ball and chain. I know at one time, and even in a past relationship of mine, I probably wasn't the best of a boyfriend, because it didn't matter what was going on, you know, they took my attention. And so I do want to grow really good cannabis. I do want to spread the knowledge that, you know, growing cannabis with living soil is easier, and you're going to have a better product. And, you know, when you first hear that, it almost sounds too good to be true. Yeah. But the reality is there's a lot of people out there that are showing that this is going to be a fundamental thing as a farmer to understand.
And it's kind of harder sometimes to cultivate the patience that's needed to not add that thing that you think you need to add, like to get away from the mental, like trying to fix everything all the time, and actually allowing for the patience to allow the plant to kind of come into her own rhythm. Because I mean, even from like a clone cut or something, if that plant has been used to a chemical environment and I'm introducing it into my living beds, there's a good like transition period that has to happen for them to kind of like, do you find that this happens for you, like to even come into like balance with that system? And then even then from then on, if I'm taking clones from that, the amplification happens through generations as far as it getting used to a living soil system. It's a patience game and an observation game.
It's a long person thinking game, right? We're thinking, we are thinking a year from now, 2 years from now, because we want to reuse this soil. And especially for you home gardeners out there, I mean, a few months go by and you don't have to go to the grocery store anymore. You can literally go to Whole Foods.
Isn't it amazing? Right?
Watch a couple YouTube videos and you can make sprouted seed teas. Like with the rabbits and the rabbit manure, right? One thing I found, here's a tip, is make like a slurry out of it. If there's a lot of it, just put it in some water and make a slurry out of that.
A slurry out of what?
The rabbit droppings.
Oh, okay.
And then once obviously it's hydrated, you can just drizzle that on top of your worm bins and they will go to town. If you take that super fresh worm castings and you put that on a troubled plant and you add some worms, and of course I would add the springtails and I would add rove beetles. I do that every time I'm really inoculating anything. You're going to minimize the fungus gnat issues. And if you do it well enough, you won't even have them, because those rove beetles are vicious. And if you have the H miles, what is it called now? Like a schistomus? They keep changing the name of it.
Oh,
The predatory mite. See,
yes,
that's my,
I
again,
have it,
that's
but
my Georgia education. So I might not be able to, I know about it, but academically,
but
I
it
don't know all
works.
the names.
You know what it looks like.
Right. And I think that's the beauty of what Tina, what we're trying to show is that, you know, you don't have to be this like super educated botanist to grow cannabis. They made me think it was that way back in the day when you would go to the grow store, but again, the synthetic companies were the only companies that were teaching us how to grow cannabis.
Well, exactly. We all have the knowledge, and it's really based on observational skills. How good are you at just looking without judgment or without preconceived idea? Like that observational skill is something we all get to develop in doing this kind of work, which has nothing to do with intellect. It has everything to do with heart and connection and caring and being truthful about what you're doing. So that bunny is so cute. So we've got the bins, our worms are working, we've got our different 3 kinds, they're doing their job.
Yeah, 4 kinds. The 4 horsemen.
4 kinds.
Yeah.
Then when you what is your, do you have a recipe now? You've got your plants growing. How are you integrating the worm castings, and like, are you separating? How are you dealing with that? Are you separating the worms, putting them? How do you do all that?
So another tip that I've always shared with the community is this thing called, or I guess the community now calls Avocado Tech, right?
Okay, right.
It's not what I didn't come up with it or anything. I felt like I was maybe one of the first ones to share it.
Yeah, I heard it from you first.
But it was definitely like a secret that we didn't share for a very long time. And now that we're all showing our faces and stuff, we're sharing with everybody. And basically what you do is you take an avocado. I prefer it to be a little bit on the starting to mold side, but I still want the flesh in there. So there's like almost like an art to it. Sometimes you can speed it up in a brown bag. But I personally like to take and put an X with a knife, like a baked potato, and kind of pop it open. And the reason why I don't cut it in half is because when I cut it in half, it seems like there's way more mites that come to it in a faster manner, right? And
cool.
And that's great. I want that. But at the same time, I'm also doing this for worms. And if there's a ton of mites in there, whoa, sorry, my bunny freaked out. Jumped off the table there. So if there's a bunch of mites in that area, the worms aren't going to really populate the way that you really want them to. So I use the baked potato method if I'm trying to use the Avocado Tech for composting worms.
Okay.
The fats and everything that are in the avocado, they love it. And every composting worm, and as far as I understand, every earthworm as well, are hermaphrodites, meaning that they're male and female. So the goal is to get them to touch, right? And as soon as they touch each other, they all start to kind of ball. And if you have enough worms in the system, if you guys check out my Instagram, if you scroll back, I've shown this many, many times. But you can get sometimes, if you get it enough, like 1/4 pound worth of worms just in like a little avocado. And then think of all the biofilm and all the things that's going on just in that little center of that avocado. And then my goal is to get them so happy that they're now going, once they finish that avocado, they're now going and searching for other food. But they've obviously started to lay these eggs, which I actually have.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys can
hold it up. Oh.
It's like a funky yellow amber color.
Yeah.
When you first start living soil, especially if you get springtails, you're gonna freak out. I actually threw away a couple of really good genetics when I got springtails because I thought they were mites. I mean, I knew they were mites, and everything. Like if you guys do a quick Google search of white springtail mites, everything that comes up on it, pretty much on the first 2 pages, is how to get rid of them. So at first it seems like they're a nuisance. But they're not. I mean, they're working in a symbiotic relationship, and they're honestly the secret to how you're able to speed up that living soil. I mean, how many people are watching? 16 people are watching us right now. So you guys,
20. I have 21.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Or maybe it's 16 on your side, 21 on mine.
This is the first time I've ever done this, so I appreciate that, Tina. But for the people that are watching this right now, the real secret to this, right, in cannabis, is that you need to improve the calcium uptakes. You need to improve the sulfur, right? And how do you do that? You do that with rabbits, because rabbits actually have very high calcium and very high sulfur in their poop. So as long as you're feeding them quality food, right? Quality in, quality out. And then you're
Wow.
using worms to break down that poop. Don't put that poop on your plants, right? Because especially in a commercial setting, there's all kinds of pathogens and stuff, right? So we take that, there is a process and almost like an art form to this. So we don't take any, even though it's a cold manure, and I should say that, a cold manure like alpaca manure, rabbit manure, meaning as soon as it comes out of the animal, you can put it on your plant without it burning it, right?
Okay, right.
But because it is a manure, there are potential for pathogens. So we don't want to worry about that. So what are we going to use? We're going to use worms, basically little machines that know how to clean up everything and break everything down. And so as long as you use that rabbit slurry in that process and then use those worms to break that down, those worm castings, better than anything you will ever buy. And I promise you guys that. Anything you could ever purchase, you could spend thousands of dollars. There's no way you're ever going to get what's coming out of those worms.
What ratio are you using in your soil mix? Do you mind me asking?
For the 20 gallons I'm growing plants in?
Yeah, like if you do a 20-gallon, what's your ratio of worm castings going into that soil mix?
Yeah, so I actually don't really start off that much with them because I want them to break down that sphagnum, but I do top feed. So I will probably, I don't even really use like an exact percentage, but I would imagine.
Oh, so you're growing inside of the castings. You're just, that's your growing medium, 100%.
Not all castings, no. I'm using sphagnum peat moss as really the base. I'm using rice hulls. I'm using pumice for aeration, but in reality, what am I really using? I'm using worms for aeration.
Are you doing biochar at all? Do you have any of that going on?
So for you guys that don't know as well, I got picked up on Everflux Technologies. I'm a VP of Soil Sciences, so we're working hard with those guys to create really good products. And one of the products that I am testing is Bioflux that's actually inoculated onto biochar. So I've actually added that into my worm bins. And of course, as long as you don't use too much biochar, it is fantastic. But again, with anything in life, right? Too much is a bad thing. And when it comes to growing, less is always better. That was one of the things I learned when I was growing aeroponically. I was using house and garden back in the day, and we were using the full nutrient strength. And I remember there was this, it was called Overgrow, I think. This is like so long ago. It was like the only place where people would openly talk about growing weed, where I felt like they were, people were really trying to help each other. And this aeroponic system, this guy was like, well, hey man, if you're having that big of issue, just cut the nutrients back, like dial it back in half. And myself and the guy I was growing with at the time, we never thought of that.
Right.
Yeah. And we were new growers. I think we were only maybe 8 months in at that. Right. So we were, and the funny part is we thought we knew, we thought we had the best. We were using, the shooting powders and all these things that cost a lot of money. And for anybody that's thinking about growing cannabis that never has, I assure you that just the simple, cheap, clean, don't use guanos and stuff. I joke around that's like saying like, your iPod or something like that, your CD player, like that's not, guanos aren't really where it's at anymore. So
and it's a mined material.
Yeah. And I know sphagnum isn't, it's not the best material either, but if somebody could tell me a better
oh, you know what? Did you pay attention to Layton's? Did you watch his interview yet? Dude, he's representing this company that's doing a post-consumer cardboard product that you need to know about. I want to get some in your hands to play with.
Sweet. Yeah.
It is pretty.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. If we could just have this little network of people that want to help each other. That's really been my MO in Colorado since day one of not being underground anymore.
Exactly. We're revolutionizing everything just by being cooperative and letting the plant show us the way.
Yeah.
I love you. I love what you're doing there, Bryan. So you've got so how many bins, how long did it take you to get your bins going, and how many do you have again?
I just have one really big red wiggler bin.
Okay.
Because in reality, I use so many of those red wigglers, I just scrape from the top and move them around that you don't really need a lot of that. But I have more bins for the Georgia jumper, Alabama jumpers, and the African night crawlers. Those are really the two that I personally feel like really get the job done. You know, I've grown for many, many years with just a red wiggler, and it definitely, my plants looked great. But having these four in conjunction and having that real biodiversity that you helped me inoculate with,
I appreciate you.
Is really what you know I'm running with right now. And I'm sure other people have seen, like, you can go out into the woods and you can mycelium hunt, and you know, you don't have to go and spend all this money on you know, some of these nutrients that are really bogus. And that's why actually I was working for Everflux, is because they're using organic ingredients, and it's a way to speed up that soil life. So for you guys that kind of want to learn more about that, please DM me on that. I appreciate those guys, because they're behind me on doing a lot of this educational things, and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes in these next few months that are going to be coming out. So I'm really
excited. And they're doing transitional work with larger farmers too. So for people who are interested in scaling up, like, it's definitely an industry leader in helping us transition.
Yeah, and the product was created in California. It's tried and true on a bunch of, it works on over 250 different agricultural crops. So it's obviously a product that feeds the soil if it's working with that many different things. So I encourage you guys to check that out, or, you know, reach out to me to find out more about it. But yeah, I mean, you're using certain products. You could really use Everflux Bio, you know, the Bioflux, the TerraFlux with the Biochar, and Tina's, Tina's, I had TerraFlux on the mind. Bokashi balls.
Tina's fuzzy balls.
Yeah, and really start to play with that and kind of see, you know, we would love to hear what you have to say with that, because we're experimenting all the time. And Tina and I are starting to exchange notes, and we're just excited to, you know, hopefully with this COVID thing, maybe we end up really having a community where we are able to stay in touch more. Because I know when we would have those live events, it was like once a month, and then we would kind of lose touch for that month, and then you know, not everybody could make it. But now that everybody's kind of forced to use technology, I feel like, all right,
it's kind of a thing with Instagram. There's trade-offs for being real-time spontaneous, but I feel like it tests our, like, resilience.
Yeah, it definitely tests your brain power, being able to recall everything live like this. So yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
It's fun stuff, man. Okay, so we were doing a shout out to, I want to try some of that TerraFlux.
Yeah, I have some, just, you know where I live.
I know where you live. I'm gonna count. We need to visit and do some chatting about next event, next happening. And yeah, I do want to hear from everybody. If anyone has people that they want to hear from, we can bring together.
I feel like between you and me, and then the people we know that also know people, we could reach out to probably a pretty good majority of the people that, you know, you guys would probably be interested in hearing from. And like I said, we're really working behind the scenes for this educational thing. And if COVID wouldn't have happened, there would have been a lot more of these live events and a lot of big things going on. So maybe not for 2020, but we definitely still have big plans, and hopefully we can do it in the fall or the winter.
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's do a consortium of sorts and get some. Yeah, let's do it. I want to do it.
Yeah, look at this African nightcrawler. They're crazy. They are.
Wow.
Hungry little things.
Okay, I'm definitely getting worms from you. I'm happy about that. So when you say that I give you an inoculation, are you talking about that little bit from my weird orange bin of insects?
You gave
or
me,
are you talking about
you gave me soil and a cloth ball, and you like wrote
okay. All the things that were in it. Now, did you get a good, healthy population of the mites and everything from that?
I did. And I got something that I had never really seen an abundance of, and it's this thing called an orbital mite. I don't know if you're... I just started researching that. So your stuff was like crazy with that, and when I put it into one of my worm bins, they went nuts. So obviously you don't want them like
Wow.
super abundant, but I just put like
Right.
a piece of watermelon, and they were attracted to that. And then I would just take them and then go down the line for each worm bin. You know, as the days go by, you
Yeah.
kind of keep inoculating. So yes, I was able to
Yeah.
inoculate everything that you saw in my basement from your inoculation. So you know, for
That
people out
is
there that are watching that, that
profound.
is, and it's just time, and I guess, and
Yeah.
skill set, right? I mean, I know the things that are going to speed up populations, and you know, I was talking about that Avocado Tech stuff. If you guys really truly use that, there's a reason why that really took off on Instagram and social media, is because it
Yeah.
works.
It
And then
works.
once you see for yourself that you don't have to go out there and buy 10,000 worms, right? You could just go out there and buy 1,000, maybe 2,000, maybe 40, $50 at most, maybe a little bit more. But then once you have them, that's the beauty of it, is using the Avocado Tech. Now you just really need 3 months. And then as soon as you have that 3 months, you've doubled that population, and now you're off to the races. Now you can take that avocado with all of those worms that you know, got in there, and I assure you a bunch of those are now pregnant, and you can take that and inoculate into another worm bin. And avocados are pretty cheap. I know some people that feel like you don't need to use organic. I personally feel like you do. You're talking about a couple dollars there when it comes
Yeah.
to an avocado. On a larger scale, I still feel like it's worth it,
Yeah.
because you're not potentially adding anything. And if you're on a commercial level, why would you ever add anything that you could potentially get popped for and then ruin your reputation or your brand or something like that, when you were still trying to do the right thing? You just got cheap and went cheap on avocados. So
Yeah.
for you guys that don't know, for anything organic, it will always have a 9 in front of it. So if you're not sure, like if you're walking in your grocery store and they have avocados over here and they have avocados over there, which ones are organic? The one with the 9 in front of it will always be organic.
That's good to know. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Full of tips today, Tina.
I know. So I'm still, for some reason, I'm still not visualizing this process. So you've got your bins that are basically your worm bins that you're feeding and your bunnies pooping on top of. Now, how do you transition that to having plants and cover crops in there? Like, what's your process? Do you then take that very pot and move it somewhere else and plant it? Or are you using some of that and creating your situation somewhere else?
I'm always building up. So like if I'm first starting a worm bin,
Yeah.
the majority of it's going to be cardboard,
Okay.
just to have brown, right? So anytime I add anything green, especially when it comes to like cannabis farming, I add brown to it. So I'll add, if I'm adding green, there's still a little brown in there. And if I'm adding brown, it's just all brown. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you don't want too much green in there. Otherwise, you could have potential like issues, bug issues, fungus gnats and stuff. And I've really minimized the like fruits and vegetables and all that stuff. I mean, I know it's great, and you know.
Well, you're feeding those to your bunny, right?
Yes, yes. But also at the same time, like if I can't really bury it down, I will, I guess, sometimes throw that in the backyard for like the wild bunnies and stuff. Because I love for them to come and poop on my yard in the back. But the ones downstairs, I've found that if I really keep it where I'm feeding the worms the bunny poop, and then I'm giving them actually like a worm chow that I buy from a girl off Etsy, I've found that not only are the worms fatter and healthier and everything seems, but there's not really any more of those bug issues, because in my opinion, it's because the rove beetles just take off dramatically, right? And then once you have, I mean, the other day I saw one that was like, no lie, like this long. I've never seen a rove beetle that long.
Wow.
And so I think, you know, this stuff is kind of creating the utopias, and the rove beetles that I'm seeing that are extremely large are the ones I put your bokashi balls in. So
That's hilarious.
who knows?
Who knows? I'll have insight onto that very soon. I want to show the bin real quick. Well, I want to do two things. I want to show you the soil that is, someone just helpfully put in the comments that it's called pit. I want to show it to you, but I want to also bring this bin over and show this thing. So here's the bin, right? And let's do this. Oh, hold on. Oh, help. So there's what I gave Bryan, a little sample of this stuff. So then this is where the ball is. And as you dig in, There's just all kinds of life in there. Oop, something flew. So yeah, anyway, just thought I'd give people something to look at in reference to what I gave you.
Big hair poppy. I'm also cultivating these springtails. I don't know if you saw these earlier.
Yeah.
But these are just really, they're, I guess, really well known in like the reptile vivarium world. They're known for just a cleanup crew. So what I use them for is if you can get a ton of them, I would imagine it's probably millions of them. But back in the day when I would begin to water my plants, you would see it actually almost look like snow over the entire area that I had just watered, and it was all the springtails that had just come up. And then once that water kind of goes down into your soil, those springtails kind of come back down as well, and then they just take off, breaking everything down. So like as you're watering every 2-3 days, you're just really increasing that springtail population. I do have a secret for you guys. There's this stuff called morning wood that I use. You can get it. It's like I think the brand name is like Rapashi, and I apologize if that's not correct. Again,
Morning wood.
Morning,
Get some morning wood.
Quite the name there. But that green stuff there is the morning wood, and the isopods absolutely love this. So you can go and get just one of these little. I think this costs like $7.50. They put them in charcoal, and then I just put that morning wood in with the charcoal mix, and then I let them sit for maybe like a week or two, and you'll have more springtails than you can imagine. And you can then take them. I might not be able to show this, but you can basically, like, there's water on the bottom, and then I just take right to the edge, right? Where the water will right to that edge, and then the springtails. So if you get them where they all bunch up, they'll just basically jump out of the water into the pots, and then you can literally just walk down the line and put them in the pots. And if you need to move worms and that kind of stuff throughout your garden, again, the Avocado Tech is how you do that. Every single worm is going to be attracted to that avocado. So if you have like I would set up, if you're going to do the 4 worms, I would have 4 different bins that you're using that in. And then you can combine them as long as the bins are big, right? So 20 gallons. So if I'm really starting something new, you would use the red wigglers, the African night crawlers. I see there's some new people coming in.
Yeah.
African night crawlers, European night crawlers, and the Georgia jumpers. And if you use those 4 in a symbiotic relationship, you won't really have any issues growing cannabis as you progress. And, obviously continue to educate yourself. But if you really understand worms and you understand adding the springtails, that's really the secret. And the bunny poop is what is for me is really my secret. That's what's really adding that calcium and adding that sulfur in a very organic way. And then using IPM type stuff with predatory insects. I love having praying mantis, whether I have bug problems or not. And in reality, I love seeing praying mantis eating each other because that means I don't have pest issues.
Right?
That's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
So those things are, again, you got to be proactive with all this stuff. It takes probably 2 to 3 weeks for those praying mantis to hatch. But once they do hatch and they go through their life cycle, they'll be brown at the beginning, and they kind of work the soil, if you will, and kind of the bottom of the stems. Then they start to turn kind of like a light green. They'll kind of work the stem. They then turn pink, and then they kind of hide more. And they're, I feel like that's when they get their like ninja skills. And then once they're fully green and fully established, they will go to the top of the plants, kind of like the brown ones do when they're babies and brown. They have more confidence, I guess. But once they're fully grown, they will guard that plant like almost like a guard dog, at least in an indoor setting. And I will, sometimes you have to kind of help the garden, but if I see 2 of them on a plant, I'm more than likely they probably will fight. So I'll just move them to the other side of the garden. And I feel like that is just another way where you guys can be proactive. And I know that we used to use ladybugs, and I think it was Keep It Simple Organics, Tad Husey, who just wrote an article about all that stuff. I encourage you guys to read that. We've now moved on from ladybugs, and now we use green lacewings. I think those are fantastic. If you guys have ever used ladybugs, you know that they usually just hump each other and then fall over and kind of like wiggle like this and die. So they're not really effective. I mean, the only time I've really seen them effective is that they would feed the praying mantis when there was no bugs around. But
that's hilarious. Well, only the larvae eat pests anyway.
Larvae are fantastic. Yeah. If you could,
ladybugs don't do anything.
I don't think you can, or I don't know of a place where you can buy the larvae. But if you could, they look like little like orange spotted alligators.
And they bite.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Yes, they do.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
it's painful. Hey, so here's that stuff I wanted to show you. That's pit moss. This is the stuff I'm going to get you some sample of for you to try. So it's really like, it's all cardboard.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's like a post-consumer thing. Your company should be all about this stuff. So
well,
we'll
if
get
it's all cardboard, that would be a way better mix than the sphagnum for the worm bins. For
sure.
I mean, I'm already putting it in there.
Yeah, they've got two different things. They've got this cocoa mix, pit moss.
We got some questions here.
So I'll make sure you get some of that.
All right. Would I recommend cow manure? I don't. I wouldn't.
Nope.
I know there's Malibu Compost out of California that, for the most part, I used to use their stuff, and then something happened. Like I had like a major problem, and I started asking people around, and they had major issues, and that's that's why I feel like a lot of us that have continued to talk about things, that's why we're getting away from the guanos and and the like. Other than the alpaca and the rabbit, really getting away from any of the manures.
And knowing where your stuff is coming from. Know your farmer. Know your environment. Keep it local. Start to act like a natural farmer. And your medicine is where you are. Yeah. I put in a semi-truck load of manure that was supposed to be organic into my outdoor garden, and something, like you just said, something happened. There was something in there, and it literally took me 3 years to get back to even a level of normal.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was in there, but it wasn't good.
And I think that only comes from like dairy cows. So to minimize that, just don't put it in your beds, right?
Don't even do it.
Yeah. And then again, like if you're not sure about a product, just run it through your worm bins, or like,
oh, true.
Just always throw it in worms, or put some castings in there, get some microbiology going on in there, and kind of see how things work out.
Yeah.
Tried and true things are really like just simple ingredients. Like I said, I was using that sphagnum. Maybe now it's just a little bit of that pit moss, using some pumice and the rice hulls, and then adding some of that worm castings from an old bin, and then just moving on down the line. And as long as you have some time, you can build an entire basement full of stuff, with $100 worth of expense. I mean, it's really, really minimal, as long as you have the time. And it does take 90 days, like I said, and that, quarter of a year is a long time. But if you're growing cannabis, you already kind of are used to that schedule anyway. So get some worm bins going and just mess around with it and see what you guys, how you guys feel about certain things.
Yeah.
This Avocado Tech outdoors, I don't think that would work, mainly because most of the worms outdoors are earthworms. But try and see.
Yeah.
The trick I've always just used with composting worms, and it works fantastic.
So, Bryan, are you using any KNF applications on your plants in addition to your amazing living soils?
Right now, I'm doing a grow trial, so I am not. But yes, when I get back to like my personal stuff, absolutely. It's
cool.
That's like saying, are you going to put your chef hat on today? Well, absolutely.
Good.
And,
are you going to
again,
go to Boise? Are you going to go to Boise? Are you going to Boise?
What is that, in August?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I will. My son
Cool.
lives pretty close to there, so hopefully so.
Well, if
I
you
would
need to
love
carpool or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And there, for you guys that haven't ever gone to anything like that, it is, I mean, Tina and I have created a bond. I have a few other people that I've created bonds from because we shared a week together, and we all learned how to grow. End of
yeah.
August. Oh yeah, cellar door. Yeah. See, I mean,
Yeah.
those, you know, you
Right?
might not see the person again for a year, but you follow them on Instagram and you feel like, you know, you're learning from each other. And that's really what I feel like Tina and I are really trying to do is, at least here in Denver. And hopefully we'll get those live events back to some of the things we used to do.
Yep. And so it's Chris's Trump's Korean natural farming 5-day intensive. And it's really like all the past students, not all, but you know, a good number of us come back, and it's just community building, and yeah, it's kind of like what Bryan's good at too, you know, bringing people together to see kind of what happens, social experiment of people doing things they love to do together. Yeah, so Chris Trump's natural farming class, Boise, Idaho, end of August. Check out.
Yeah, you're learning from, you know,
Yeah.
one of the best in the country. I mean,
Yeah,
Chris
he's natural
Trump is-
farming company, natural, or at Soil Steward on, yeah, at Soil Steward and at natural farming company.
If you type in Chris Trump KNF, I assure you, you will find the right place. He is killing it on all that.
Yeah.
Yes, you do need to get there. It was really fun. It was worth every penny, in my opinion. And they gave us a really healthy lunch, and then we
Yeah,
would
every day.
enjoy the evening together.
Yeah, we got to run down the alleyway.
Yeah, downtown, that was crazy. Quick story: this lady that was a bartender, she said, "Oh, you guys can smoke some cannabis. That's okay." And she let us go into this back area, and so I think there was like 4 or 5 of us, and we just started puffing tough. And she came back there almost sprinting. She was like, "I didn't know you guys would be smoking like this." She started freaking out, so we had to go out in the alley and everything, and it was just fun. It was fun all around.
Longer story. So we found an exit route, like, and ended up in the alley talking to Preston, and then came back in only to learn that like we had set this trend, and like every natural farmer was like migrating down to the basement, and then we're like, there were all these stories emerging, like, oh my god, and we're like, really that happened? We weren't there. No.
Yeah, Idaho's not really big on cannabis, so
No, be careful. Not at all.
Freaking out.
Not at all. Well,
Do you guys have more questions or stuff?
Yeah.
I'd love
Questions?
What's up, Green Bean?
Basement hotbed.
Hot box.
Oh, hot box. Thank you. Jesus. It just comes out. I don't know why. This has been fun, Bryan.
Yeah, I really enjoy, you know, talking with you guys. It's fun.
Yeah. Isn't it the best? Get my balls in some worms. Yes, girlfriend.
Hey, Katie.
Yeah, Katie, I miss you. Can I see you when I come visit Bryan? Can we like have a weird 6-foot like meeting?
If you hang out at my house, you don't have to buy by those rules. We don't wear masks in here or anything.
Can I come visit soon and we hash out some of these details of this larger consortium we're going to put together?
What do you mean? Could I go over like what they do? Big-haired poppy.
Biochar doesn't quite turn into castings, but you know what?
But other things will break that down eventually.
Right,
It does
and
take
also,
a long time. Yeah.
And don't you think, like, I feel like it has some kind of, I'm really looking, because I'm doing the work with the clay stuff, like the biochar ends up having this kind of electrochemical effect. There's kind of a field that's getting established through this material that sort of helps everything communicate.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the EC is affected by biochar in interesting ways.
So breeding is, with composting worms, breeding is really the same thing. You know, the goal is the Avocado Tech, and to make sure that they always have enough food. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like fruits and vegetables. You know, contrary to common belief, the worms aren't really eating the cardboard or eating the fruit. They're eating the bacteria that's building on the fruit and the cardboard. So as long as there's enough food there, they really can just do their own thing. And as long as you're using like a fabric pot, you know, I've tried this before when I was using like plastic bins, and there's this thing that we tried called a worm bin or a worm in that was, you know, you could put it in a, like the castings would come down, but it was always this mess. And I found that, you know, using that 100-gallon fabric pot is really the biggest I can do for my basement, because I mostly do this all myself. And 100-gallon, I mean, that thing is huge. So I can move it, but I can't like really move it around too much. And so once I have that, it's kind of like stable there. And now my goal is really just to add food, really get the biology up, and start that cover crop. Because in my opinion, worm farming goes to the next level when you're using a cover crop. And almost anybody that you see on like YouTube or showing how to do worm farming, they're always using like cardboard to cover it, or a burlap sack, which works, right? But again, worms like the rhizosphere, the roots, right? And Dr. Lionhead teaches everybody that the roots communicate with the microbes through something called exudates. And so when she's giving off those exudates, she's attracting all of these different microbes to her little area. Well, we're not able to attract those, so we have to actually add those as like a top feed. But once everything starts to build into that, now cannabis farming is easy. And I will say that right before I was on the Adam Dunn show this one time, I met Soma's daughter and I think her boyfriend, and they were all talking about how they grow cannabis in a living soil. And they were also talking about how they believe that cannabis as a plant on like a metaphysical level knows that cannabis has grown in that soil beforehand. So I have no idea if that's true or not, but I have noticed that, you know, my clones, when I put them in a living soil that's really, you know, been worked, like let's say at least a year, they perk right up and they get those praying leaves even at a clone stage. And I never achieved really that growing cannabis on a synthetic. So that little bit there lets me know that, you know, the plant is, you know, when she has her praying leaves, you need to pat yourself on the back as a farmer, because there's really nothing else you can do. I mean,
there's nothing else past that. Yeah, she's happy.
She's getting ready, right? She's taking in sunlight and she's creating photosynthesis, and she is off to the races. And as long as you continue to build that soil, you know, cannabis farming becomes not as hard as it seems when you first start out.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to put a little 2 cents in there just because of what I've been learning a little bit. There's a book called Regenerate, which I've been pushing for a couple weeks now. Sawyer G is the author. And what I love about it is he goes into quite a bit of detail around RNA and exactly what RNA is in its function, not only with our immune function, but also a plant's immune functioning. And so this cross-generational talk, the cross-talk that happens all the time, but it also happens cross-generationally. So a lot of what we're doing for our plants that then succeed into the next generation, whether through clone or seed, are having this RNA conversation that is transmitting just an immense amount of information. So it's he goes into a neat description about it, and it's a nice understanding to have, especially in this time of COVID, because our immune functions are different than I think what people understand. And the more of us that can really understand this and understand it through the cannabis plant, because it's operating there really well, just like what you just said, that it's, you know, they have this memory from generation to generation, what kind of soils they've been grown in, and it's the RNA.
And the roots, like, you know, when when a root dies, I guess, I learned this from Minnesota Nice. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but the new root supposedly can tap into the old root and basically take all of that nutrition that the cannabis plant before it has taken up. And then if the roots are old enough, then obviously the decomposers start to break those things down, and that obviously builds up in your soil. And one joke that I learned from I think it was Jeff Lowenfels is, you know, it's kind of like it's rough streets in the microbial world, right? Like there's not really like a long life for microbes. They're here and then they're dead and they're decomposed and then things quickly change. So the biodiversity is king. If you guys focus on that, if you guys focus on the calcium and the sulfur for the flavors and the terps, you'll be growing cannabis better than most of your peers.
Wow, so good.
Yeah, well, the biochar would be still there, and anytime I'm even making mix, it's not complete worm castings. I'm not I'm not making worm castings to sell or anything. I'm just making worm castings to improve my overall grow, and so it does have you know, it's not as clean as and pure as just worm castings, but I don't want it that way. I like that there's a little bit of biochar in there. I think that those are like almost like a little hotel, if you will, for microbes, and they're able to like go in the cracks and the crevices and multiply. And you know, as long as you don't overdo it with the biochar, it's fabulous. If you overdo it with the biochar, you're gonna have some serious problems. Put one of the fuzzy balls in my worm bin last week. They won't complete. Yes, that's exactly what happened the same way, Jade. I've actually put 2 of her fuzzy balls in my worm bin just with the red wigglers, which actually don't eat as fast as the Africans or Europeans, and they devoured it, destroyed it. And the beauty of that is all of a sudden I saw an unbelievable amount of rove beetles. Take that for what it is. If you're able to have rove beetles in there and you put a bokashi ball in there and you're able to get hundreds of rove beetles, that right there is probably worth $200. I mean, rove beetles are not cheap. So
Interesting. Yeah, and they're going to amplify anything that's in anything that they're part of. It's going to amplify the that entropic level, whatever it is, entrophic level, whatever it is. It's there's something in they're producing something. Those facultative anaerobes are producing a terrestrial form of chitin.
exactly. And what does chitin do? Chitin makes the plant think it's being attacked, right? And so a plant can't run away from bugs. So how does she improve herself? Well, she improves the overall health and vigor of herself. And chitin is one of the ways that we trick our plants into thinking that she's being attacked. That's why if you guys have ever messed around with insect frass, which actually is something that we use at Everflux, the plants are extremely healthy from that alone because it's almost like a flu shot, if you will. They think they get attacked. She grows healthier, greener, stronger.
And what are exoskeletons made out of? They're made out of chitin, so that is a source for them to produce big ass bugs.
That's right. And you don't have to buy like super expensive stuff. Like you can get crickets online. Yeah. And I would take dead crickets, right? I think I could buy like a ridiculous amount of them for like, I don't even know, maybe $15, $10, $15. And then I put them in a like emulsifier, like a magic bullet, and I just grind them up. And that's basically insect frass, and it's probably 1/10 of the cost. So like I said, there's many ways, and if we continue to have these talks, Tina, I'd love to just continue to educate people, because you know, sometimes it takes months, years to really understand all this stuff and know that like, hey, you can grind up crickets and it's not going to be a problem. You know, before we all started educating each other, there were little things that like I would be terrified back in the day to put a bunch of bugs into my, even if they were dead, into my growing medium, right? Because what happens if, you know, I just probably have silly questions or silly thoughts of what would happen. Once you have that microbial life and you have the worms going on, now you get to experiment. Now you might mess up, but who cares? Throw some more worms in there, throw a little worm castings on top. It'll take care of itself.
Because the diversity ends up balancing out. And it's, you know, when you have a diversity that's inclusive of a lot of beneficials, it's not necessarily that your aim is to get rid of the bad ones. It's just to overpopulate them with diversity, and it really does balance itself out. I mean, nature wants to live, nature wants to thrive, and nature thrives through abundance.
And the
Period.
beauty of most beneficial insects, whether they're in the soil or they're in the plant itself, is they work in a symbiotic relationship with one another. It's usually the alphas that emerge that are the problems. So as long as, you know, you got your green lacewings, you got your praying mantis up top, you got your predatory mites, and then you got your rove beetles, you got your, I think it's schistomus now, the H-miles, predatory mite, and your worms, everything else just seems to pop. And I think, what was it, Green Bean asked the question, how, like, best way to decomposers in your soil is to start off with really high-end compost. Get, you know, spend the money and get, you know, some really quality compost. I personally, I used to work for a buffalo, which was like a bison compost company, and I had a bunch of that stuff. So that's what I started with, and it was amazing. And I feel like maybe that was part of that secret too, is that I was using bison compost. At the time, I was using Malibu compost as well, and I was using mushroom compost.
Yeah, love that.
Rabbit compost, rabbit manure, and I think that was it. But again, as you progress as a farmer, you start to notice, like, I don't want to add all those things, right? So you start to use less and less. Like I used to be big on making all these teas and stuff. I thought that was like fantastic, right? But as you progress in your thinking and your workload, and you really start to think about labor, and this is more even on like a commercial level, really, what is the point of a compost tea, right? Is just to add life, right? We're just building up life, and then we're adding it on top of it. Well, we can do that same thing, maybe not as fast, but I have noticed that with certain compost teas, when you're first starting out, if you're not really focused on that, and you do kind of make some mistakes, there are alphas that can breed out of that. And I have personally seen people that have brewed compost teas and it killed their plants because they just didn't pay attention to certain things. So to minimize that, and instead of like really worrying about that, we just put compost as a top feed. We water it in, and then the worms are going to take care of everything else. So there's less risk of some kind of, myself as a human being, making some kind of mistake. I make sure that the worms are in my bins so that I don't make mistakes, because Mother Nature, you know, if she's working together, she really doesn't make mistakes. Those worms are going to break down everything you're putting in as a top feed every single time. And they're going to do it in a fantastic way. And the beauty of a composting worm is what comes out of them is always better than what they put in. And that is extremely rare on this planet. Usually what's coming out is only waste. So I hope that people see that these little creatures are extremely beneficial to cannabis farming. And you use Avocado Tech, and you have enough time and some space, and you could build an entire facility growing cannabis with just the soil food web, the 4 composting worms that you need, the farmer brain that you have, and some kind of really well thought out IPM management program. And then you get to enjoy your weekends. You'll get to enjoy your nights off. You don't have to worry about pH all the time, you know?
You girls will be praying all the time.
And that is a joy in life, is to do what you love to do, but not have it be such a burden. And growing synthetically especially hydroponically, because I have done that on a commercial scale, is a burden. Yeah, it really is. Even though you love the plant, day in and day out, it becomes a burden. And if it is your livelihood, and you're growing that for somebody else, it's just hard to put the same love and care in a hydroponic grow that farmers seem to put into a living grow and into organic living soil grow.
And, you know, work becomes play when you discover that you are actually a steward rather than, you know, an interpreter. And being a steward puts you right in alignment with natural systems. So you're not only learning things about the plants you're growing, but you're learning things about your own microbiome, which is a reflection of the soil microbiome. And then suddenly you're feeling more healthy, and not just because you're smoking amazing weed, but because you're actually ingesting, through your working with the plant, you're getting inoculated in your own body, on your skin. Like everything comes into a unification that is just so pleasing. And then work becomes play. And we're suddenly like having these conversations and loving life. So I so appreciate you, Bryan.
Well, I just want to, you know, I want people, especially the home gardeners. I mean, that's where I started, right? I was just, you know, to be honest, I was lost. I used to play poker, and then the government shut that shit down one day. I just like woke up. I think it was tax day, like I don't even remember now, like 2010 maybe or something, and my whole world was crushed. And I was growing cannabis as a hobby, and so that was really the only other alternative that I had. I didn't have a college degree. I thought I would play cannabis, or thought I'd play poker for the rest of my life, and so I want to pass this on to other people because, like, as you guys can see, like when, like I've had this home since 2009, I believe. And part of it has been because I understand how to grow cannabis. I know I have to say that very delicately, but the reason I have certain things in life is because I taught myself how to grow cannabis.
Yeah. She's me too. I mean, I have my own sort of story around how she's brought me into this very community that we're a part of now. You know, like I had just gotten through, I was down for breast surgery. I'd had implants, but I had breast cancer. And so I went 8 years with a prosthetic and I was tired of it. So I got my boobs and I was just like going through a divorce at that time. And I just remember I literally watched the entire season of Weeds. I was not a I didn't even smoke cannabis the first 6 years that I grew. But I looked around my house and I was like, this is a perfect grow house. So I just taught myself how to grow. And I'd already been gardening. My mom and I are big gardeners. We were part of the farmers market. I'm really into growing. But cannabis is growing cannabis and aligning myself with her is what taught me about my connection to nature through a very slow and thorough tutoring of me. And yeah, I am incredibly grateful to her for her medicine and for helping bring us together.
Yeah, and like I said, it's you know, I was diagnosed when I was a young man with ADHD, and they started pumping me full of drugs. And they first gave me this thing called Dexedrine, and it made me feel weird, and I never ate. And so then they gave me Ritalin, and then Ritalin made me feel really I had a lot of anxiety and just felt like a different person. And then they gave me Adderall, and Adderall was horrific. It's fantastic, like, you know, if you take it on a Friday night because you need to study or something. But if you take that day in and day out for months on end, there's something that changes in your brain. And I don't really know what happened, but I know that for a few months there, I did not feel like I was myself. And so I quit. I just blatantly quit. And I basically told my parents that, you know, I'm an adult, even though I wasn't, and I am going to smoke cannabis. And I have ever since.
Wow, gorgeous.
Yeah.
True medicine.
Do you guys have more? I know you guys were asking questions and we kind of missed them. If you guys have more questions.
There was somebody who said MBT. What is that? Do you know what that is? An anachronism?
BMT?
Yeah. That was back in the feed. Let's go back. All right, let's see. Microscope, yes. Good to have a microscope. Leighton is teaching me how important that is. Mycelium has chitin too. Yes. That's the anaerobic facultatives as well.
And remember, mycelium is really like the difference between dial-up internet and fiber optic networks, right? Once you have that mycelium going in that, so much so, like you can see it growing in the sunlight. Holy cow, is that entire world communicating. And once you get that nice little fuzz for a living soil farmer or a natural farmer, that is kind of like our 3 pounds of light. You know, it's really hard for us to achieve certain metrics, I guess, that the synthetic world puts out there.
It's true.
But we've always said, even in my classes and stuff, I used to teach guys that were still kind of, you know, in that gray area. Do you always want to hustle 3 pounds day in and day out? Or do you want somebody willing to prepay you for 2.5, right? And I would rather have somebody prepay me, because I don't know if you guys have ever tried to hustle packs throughout life, but here's the real secret. You get the bubble guts. It fucking sucks. You're worried the entire time. Whether this is guys, your homie or not, you're just, the real truth of it is that you're extremely nervous as that kind of person. And if you're making money that way, especially way back in the day, it was horrible. It was a horrible existence. I mean, we pretended and we made ourselves feel better with material things, but on a metaphysical level and just on a health level, you know, like probably even this kind of stuff, believe me, that came from selling packs. So the fact that we can now do this in a legal way, and you know, I have children and everything. Money doesn't really matter as much as it used to me. I just want to take care of my family. But yeah, I think the Living Soil crowd, our whole views are shifting. We don't really give a shit if we're growing 3 a light. We're just trying to grow medicine. Cannabis
and greed do not get along, although they do seem to come hand in hand at certain points of the development of the community. But yeah.
But they don't, you know, those guys don't really last that long. And
no.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with brands like MedMen and stuff, but that's a classic example of greed. That's a classic example of those guys basically thinking they're like almost like an NFL franchise, yet they had no real talent. They had no real quarterback for that brand. And that's something that I would say to any owners out there is, your head grower is your quarterback. And if you don't believe in him and ride with them on the ups and downs of things, you're going to be like the Browns or the Rams, or, you know, I mean, you're never going to win, because you gotta have an owner that believes in you. And and that's why I think a lot of people are starting to educate themselves with a Living Soil, is because then you get to stand out from all the other cannabis farmers out there that do understand growing cannabis and are good at it. But at the end of the day, how are you adding value to my farm? And if your knowledge is going to bring my labor costs down and bring my material costs down, and you're thinking 2 years from now, you know, I hope I don't step on anybody's toes, but I don't really see synthetic guys thinking like that. They're just thinking flip, right?
Yep.
Just thinking about that flip. And with a Living Soil, you have to think about the future flips, because you're feeding. Number one, you're feeding for those next flips while you're growing your current flip. And so, you know, that I think that helps with genetics. I think growing organically keeps you, you know, going out there and being involved in your plants every day. I know that when we would do like some consulting stuff, a lot of the stuff that I feel like with pest issues and stuff just came down because the team was actually lazy, right? And everything was so automated that that culture started to build, and the weeks went by, the months went by, and maybe a year or two went by. And now everybody has gotten used to minimal work because everything was automated, but they weren't checking the plants. They weren't making sure things were going, and they had major issues. So Living Soil, especially if you have your team, you almost kind of force your team to hand water. To me, it's money well spent.
Oh,
right?
yes.
That labor is because you teach your team to scope and check the plants as they're watering. There's nothing better than a human being walking the plants. When I go to these big like MJ BizCons and stuff, and all these guys are pitching you everything automated, my ears just close over, because I know, at least in my world, you have no idea what you're talking about. Exactly. And automated is the worst thing we would do. Yes, automation makes certain people lazy. I'm not saying everybody out there, and I hope that people don't take it or
the natural farmers
and say Bryan doesn't, because if you grow cannabis, however you grow cannabis, I personally like that. I personally like you, right? I'm not saying that Living Soil is the be all end all. I'm just saying that I have personally found that with my skill set and my knowledge base, that I don't have the same knowledge that you botanists do. And you guys that are out there growing amazing cannabis synthetically, hats off to you, because I wouldn't be able to do that. I just never got that skill set. So I educated myself in another way, and that is to use Mother Nature. And that's really what Korean natural farming is. That's what living soil is. At the end of the day, everything comes down to we're using nature. We're speeding things up with nature. We're using our farmer brain to improve things, but we're still using nature. And that's why we love sharing this stuff with you, is because, you know, if I have a farm that's 5 years in, right, there's no way that you guys could ever catch up with that farm, because that soil is already churned. Everything's become alive and thriving. Why wouldn't I help? Why wouldn't I, you know, unless you're just a dick, I guess. But I mean, if someone asks me a question and I know they're not, like trying to pick my brain, where it's just, you know, you can tell people when they're genuinely asking a question, or they're strictly asking me a business question because they want to take that information and make money off of it. I hate those kind of people. But if you guys genuinely have like a question, like, I have an issue with this, or what the hell is a russet mite, you know, reach out to Tina, reach out to myself. You know, we help. I talk to people in the DM, as long as they don't ask me to ship them weed and shit. But I'm willing to help you guys. I just don't, again, sometimes when I help, I feel like then people take advantage of that. And then they were like, I don't know, they get upset because you're not like basically helping them through their entire grow. Right. So
yeah, there's a few bad habits that we have to shed as we're sort of coming out of this dark age of silo thinking, vertical, like everyone's against each other, competitive. Like, we really are coming into a new paradigm, and we're all having to get rid of our bad habits and kind of learn how to share with one another. And it's a process. Like, it's sometimes a painful process, because I often felt like I'm giving away the things that maybe I should keep to myself, because I, you know, am still paying a mortgage. I'm still, like, even with these balls, like, I'm full, you know, I'm fully sharing the entire process, recipe, everything. Like, there's still part of me comes up with this risk factor, like, oh, if I do that, no one's going to buy the balls. But really, it's not about that. It's about, like, if my area is thriving, if my little piece of acre is thriving, it's going to help your piece of acre thrive. And by everybody thriving, we're going to change the world, and we're going to be able to feed ourselves, nurture ourselves, medicate ourselves, and help each other, and, you know, and be at play again. You know, this whole theme of, like, let's work smarter, not harder. And it's about helping nature, and the only way we can do that is by helping each other, because we're a part of nature. So, and
working smarter is us having conversations, because there are certain things that I've learned from you, Tina, that probably would have taken me months, maybe a year to learn. There's certain tips and tricks, like, you know, I was sharing before with the rabbits and stuff.
Oh, I can't wait for the rabbits.
That's taken me years, guys. That's taken me years, and then I just rattle them off to you. You know?
Are you breeding your rabbits?
I'm not. I actually save them from the shelter.
Oh, you do?
But I maybe in time I might. But for now, no. I just I rescue them, and then I teach them to poop in the pots, and then I feel like they have a way better existence in life, being able to just go amongst the house like a dog. You know,
do you think that they can be cohabitators with a cat? Probably not, huh? Or maybe.
It's really up to your cat. You know?
Right.
Like,
training the cat.
The Lionheads, like I said, the reason why I like that breed is because they're extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
And they're really sweet. But
yeah.
If they're in a corner or something like that, they will bite the shit out of you. Like my Giselda, she'd bite the shit out of me when I'd feed her. You know, I'm like, damn, girl. You know?
Lighten up.
Yeah. This food ain't cheap. You know, this is organic greens over here.
Oh my God. All right. So there was one question, and maybe we can use this to kind of wrap up, because I want to come down and talk. We need to have lunch and talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's his name? Big hair Pappy is asking, I'm trying to reduce the local waste stream at our local distributor for produce. How would you convert 1,000 pounds of fresh veggies into insects? I've been feeding to cows, but I'd like to do some insectary. So yeah, how about like start like, I don't know, quick rundown, like what it would take to scale up to that level.
Yeah, obviously, well, at that level, I would probably start using like worms and bokashi.
Oh yeah.
Because at that level, you would use a bunch of worms. I mean, that is, yeah. Bokashi is next level as well. So Tina, if you would love to have like another, I know you're definitely way more knowledgeable on it than me, but we could definitely have a discussion on that, because I think
let's do it.
That was another like aha moment for me. Cover crop was an aha moment for me. And then worm
what do you use for a cover crop? What do you have, a mix that you like especially, or
yeah, I guess I don't, is it all right to build a soil? I like those guys.
Yeah.
They have a cover crop blend. It's a 12 seed blend. If you don't want to shop like online or something, you just want to go to a store. Crimson clover is usually something that you can buy really easily. And I just load up on that if I wasn't able to get like a variety mix. But again, biodiversity is king, right?
Yep.
Queen. So the different crops that you can get, especially legumes and that kind of stuff, in addition with the clover, that's really going to build that thriving living soil, in the living soil way of like where we understand the soil food web. Because it's okay to have, like, if you really understand the soil food web, it's okay to have a little bit of bad things. Like you almost kind of need it in a way. And again, the rove beetles really take care of all that. So if you guys, take away from anything today, it's that if you're going to grow with a living soil, be so proactive that you're thinking it through, that you guys are worm farming before you even start putting a plant in the ground. And I assure you that you will appreciate that you took the time to set that up beforehand, because your life's going to be so much easier. And if you don't have to deal with fungus gnats, and that's the other thing too, is, sometimes these owners, they don't smoke, they don't grow, they're just the wallet. So when they come in and they see a shit ton of fungus gnats, they give you these looks sometimes like, like, does this guy know what the hell he's talking about? But once you get over that hurdle, right, and it goes away, then everybody. So to minimize your boss or your investors or whoever looking at you that way, be more proactive in these living soil grows, and you are going to look like a rock star to some of these investors, because not only are you growing cannabis that they've probably never seen before, but if you're doing it the right way, the labor should be down dramatically. Maybe not the first like few months, because you're working everything through, but once your process is in and you've kind of taken over that facility and you're running a living soil and the beds and everything are growing, that labor cost goes down dramatically.
Oh yeah.
And then it comes, and then we, I could continue, I could talk about this all day, but then it comes down more into like the genetics, right? And genetics are probably 50% of growing cannabis right there. So there's just a whole line of things that if you really set yourself up for success at the beginning, you just won't ever falter. You won't lose a crop. You won't have pest issues or powdery mildew issues or anything like that, because you're just growing such a healthy cannabis crop that those issues, even if they pop up, like let's say you had spider mites, especially in a larger facility, you might have a pocket of spider mites, but you might not ever see that because the mites, the predatory mites that you've been adding every few weeks, they've been keeping up.
Yeah, I would love to have a genetics conversation with you, especially because like being a woman grower, being of an age group that's not sort of like in the know, or not being a traditional part of the culture either, like the genetics game has been sort of the hardest for me to like actually be part of a community. And I guess so this is kind of like me saying, like shouting out to everybody out there who's hoarding genetics or feeling some kind of ego involvement in it, that like this sharing of genetics, or like even sharing, like I'm doing this crazy genetics project that I am intuiting on my own and not getting a whole lot of help in the community from, based on my observational skills, that it's going to take a plant a period of time to adapt to their environment. And so anyway, there's a whole lot of things we could talk about in that, but this is just a shout out to be like, hey, let's find a way to come together as a community around genetics as well, and figure out how to share stuff there, because there's a whole lot that needs to happen there.
Well, and not only that, but let's share real truths with each other, because I know that people out there are afraid to say certain things, but there are breeders out there, and I am not afraid to say this, that are taking $200-300 from you for a 10-pack of seeds, and they've really never even tested it, right? And yes. And then you might not notice that. You know, I personally didn't notice it for many years because I was just growing in a tent and I didn't have like just a huge amount of plants to run through. But then when I started growing commercially, a lot of these seed brands that I'm sure you guys probably are in love with, they're on a larger scale facility, their stuff is not as good. And I really think that if we had a real candid conversation, we don't have to name names or anything, but
no, just talk about the process.
And know that, I mean, it's really simple, guys, right? If you see a genetics brand that's coming out with 20 new genetics every few weeks, I mean, it doesn't, you don't even really have to be that great of a cannabis farmer to understand that. How are they working those lines, you know? And that's why, you know, I have a little thing that I've been doing as well. Tina's been on for Everflux, where I've been interviewing people. And last week we had a guy named Derek with Sunleaf Seed, and he comes out with a line like every 6 months, you know, and that really is kind of the difference. You know, and I guess I am giving certain brands a shout out, but I think Derek deserves a shout out because he really does work his lines. Like he's not he doesn't drive a Lamborghini and all this bullshit. Like he's a guy of the people, you know? I mean, he takes his money.
We're going to get together again. You want to get together again for one of these, and I want to catch up on the interviews that you've been doing. How can people find out about what you're doing over there with Everflux?
We're posting the videos at Everflux Technologies. It's under the education aspect, or tab, I'm sorry.
Okay. Is that at their website?
Yes, ma'am. And that's going to also be posted up on YouTube as well.
Okay.
And then, if you guys have questions or stuff, just reach out to us. Tina and myself are here to answer questions, like I said, and as long as you guys don't take advantage of us, I have no problem answering questions to the best of my ability. Like, you know,
let's keep this as part of a conversation. Let's go, you know, this is an ongoing relationship that we're having with each other. And so, you know, you need help. But at the same time, if we've got things that, you know, we're needing support through products or, you know, any of those sorts of things, or attendance. And anyway, you know, let's do reciprocation together.
Yeah, like I said, we're going to have these live events. Tina was the first person I actually reached out to because of like her message and the way she teaches and all that stuff. So once we are allowed to run with that, I really think you know, there's Chris, obviously I'd love to have as like a live event. Wendy's, Cannabis, Cultivating Classics. I saw you on there too, buddy. DJ. There's just a lot of bright-minded people that really understand it, that maybe just because their Instagram is, you know, not as big or whatever. I really hate when I hear people be like, oh yeah, but you know, they only have this many, or Instagram is bullshit, right? The reason I'm on Instagram is because it's worked for me. Otherwise I wouldn't be on this. It's a platform. It's a way for us to be able to educate and communicate with one another. And my goal is to give the guys that maybe don't have, you know, that are brilliant, that are posting things and maybe 4 people liked it, but it's next level thought process. So hopefully, Tina, I know like since you've been doing this and I've been helping you understand social media, maybe that's something else that I could help the community with so that the message could be seen more.
Yeah. Let's, yes. Platform
Because
building.
if you, excuse me, for you guys that don't know, if you have a cannabis account, especially like me that has the word cannabis in the actual name, I'm basically like shadow banned and everything you can imagine. Like they don't really even show like my hashtags to many people. I mean, it'll show up in the feed, but it doesn't go to the people. And so we as a cannabis community have to work together to kind of spread our material throughout the Ethernet of Instagram, because their algorithm punishes you just for being a cannabis person. And so, you know, to have my account at where it's at, could you imagine if we were actually allowed to like promote living soil cannabis and stuff? Like, you know, if we could add, you know, we're not allowed to do that kind of stuff. So we need to find a way where we're able to promote each other. And Tina and I already do that. So, you know, I hope that you guys as well, like if you have something interesting or something, tag me in it. And if I think it's cool, I'll post it up there. You know, I tag people all day. I try to promote people that don't really have a voice, or I just try to use my Instagram to promote others and show, you know, unique things in my life. And I hope that other people in this community do the same. I do see a lot of these people now with like the ego starting to get to them, and they're starting to like really show their plants and all, and I get that, and that's great and stuff, but let's use Instagram to further educate one another. We all have pretty plants, right? We all smoke dabs, right? I'm not into the whole like, you know, we have cool rigs and we smoke good. Yeah, we all do that, right? And we've kind of, in reality, if you're in Colorado, we've been doing that for a while now. So let's move on to something cooler. And to me, that's educating one another, building a community. You know, the material shit, like I said, as long as I can take care of my family, I don't know. I just don't really care anymore. And then when COVID hit, you kind of see like what really matters when some major stuff goes down.
Isn't it funny how it kind of realigns what's important to us? Like, you know, the constriction, there's two different forces. There's constriction and there's expansion. And by being constricted from an outside way, we're maybe being taught to sit and learn what it's going to be like to expand. And expansion requires like breath and and reciprocity. So when we're learning how to be in community, it's and we feel like we need to be given a lot of education or whatnot, and we're taking that freely from the people who are giving it, but also in that, remember that you're also required to give. So when you're receiving, remember that it's a way of it's a reciprocity. Breathing is reciprocity. You're bringing it in, but then you're giving it out. So let's all learn how to breathe together.
And we're gonna, you know, if you want to be greedy on that side of things, this one guy taught me this. What radio station does everybody listen to? And it's like WWIFM. What's in it for me?
Oh, right.
So what's in it for you guys? Well, the fact that you can shave months, years off of growing, right? If we actually had a community where we were working together and we were talking about certain things where it's like, hey, you know, I tried this on russet mites and it didn't work. Do you know how much time you guys would have saved me back in the day if I could?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knew how to combat russet mites at first.
Right.
And I'll tell you, you want to know the secret now? Sulfur. What? Right? Sulfur.
Oh my
but
God.
Do you know how long? Do you know how many years and trials and stuff it took me to just be able to rattle that off to you guys? So that's the kind of stuff that I hope other people will start to do for us, so that Tina and I can learn, and you guys can continue to learn. And if I can rattle off that something that took me years to just, you know, you guys just got for free like that, I hope that people kind of like pay it forward type thing, and we really start to work together. And I would imagine in a few years, if we had this kind of community, that all of our attributes would just be through the roof.
Well, I'm going to give you a little example of what that's going to feel like for everybody, because I'm going to lay something down for you that you're going to just love. And I'm going to make sure you get some of this to play with. Do you know what helps a plant receive more sulfur in order to do that thriving, amazing thing?
I had heard that it's like, oh, okay. I have a little pitch. All right.
Iron.
Yep.
And
you need something called a siderophore within your soil system to move that iron. A siderophore is an iron carrier. It moves the iron. So
well, this is an organic form. So this shellagite is extremely high in iron because I had it tested. So, okay, keep that thought for a second, but let me tell you how I arrived at it, and then I want to hear what you're saying, because see how this works when we share information, we build on each other? Like, I'm about to learn something from him, and he now learns I have a product that's got a plant-available form of iron. What? So, that's so fucking cool.
And those are the things that really make your cannabis stand out. You know?
Oh
iron,
my God.
sulfur, calcium.
Right. So and there is a relationship between iron and sulfur. So and I just found one research paper that I'm going to have to go back and refine, but it's something about iron and sulfur go together to make something that resembles a protein in the plant. But I was trying to figure out what the ratio is going to be for the plant's use of this as a humic and fulvic source. And so I was using it at different ratios. 1 to 300 seemed to be about the right amount. But what happened was I burned all my plants because I was treating with sulfur, the jadam sulfur with wetting agent.
Okay.
But guess which plants didn't burn at all? The ones that I had treated with 1 to 300 of shellagite. I mean, they almost literally thrived by it. So then I started doing some research, and I was like, what is this relationship what is it? And I just, iron and sulfur. And I don't know what's happening in the plant, but they're creating some kind of a protein. So I'm very curious to know, what was that word you used for a carrier?
It's called a siderophore.
Siderophore?
Yeah. I don't know how to spell that, so sorry.
I'll look it up. It's okay.
I'll hook you up with it.
Okay. We have a whole list of things to list from this show.
Well, we have, like I said, I mean, we could do this with so many people. I mean,
oh God. Yeah.
And there's so many brilliant people that never get a platform. So if we were able to use our platforms, it's not like we don't have this huge platform or anything, but we do have our little platforms that we can message out. And I think as far as living soil, it is the future of growing. I mean,
it is absolutely 100%.
I know I'm biased on that, but I just can't see, especially labor and the cost of soil. Like when I worked at this commercial facility in Denver, we bought bagged soil.
Right.
So we were ripping bags of soil, filling like 10,000 square foot rooms. I mean, cost effectiveness but we weren't even buying totes, and shoveling it out. They thought it was quicker but we were probably paying $3 extra a bag for that quickness. And thousands of bags is what we were using. And
then what do you do with the bags? You stick them in the dumpster. And
and we all of our material and stuff we threw away. We didn't reuse any of that.
Oh, right. Oh, the day
the
back.
facility that we worked at, they were like supposedly green or whatever, and they were paying to have their stuff removed on site and then recycled. So then when we brought up well, why don't we just use it, in our own stuff?
Yeah, right.
They didn't like that idea.
No. Yeah, the waste.
Fox Farm is shit. And if you guys grow with that stuff, I encourage you to try something else and see what your shit looks like.
Yep. Here.
Yeah, rocks from the river to get iron and yeah, badass.
Nice.
What did the burn look like with jadam?
Typical, sulfur burn, it sort of eats the leaf away. You notice it, I think first comes up is kind of like yellow spots, and then pretty soon you've got holes in your leaves, and it progresses over a period of days. It's not pretty. You can do that with a sulfur burner too. I mean, it didn't take much to burn either. I can't remember what my application rate was, but I think it was maybe just a quarter teaspoon above what was prescribed. It wasn't much over. So you want to be careful with your use of sulfur for sure, or use a buffering agent.
Yeah, and again, sulfur in that form, we're really using that to kill russet mites.
Yeah, that's what that's about. Yeah.
But I mean, it's an extreme. It's going to it's not the best thing for
I won't do it now that I know this relationship. I will never do that again. I will never. I don't actually use the Jadam sulfur. I'm actually the bay laurel that we talked about with Preston last time. So I had hemp aphids last year because I had my hemp license last year. I had hemp aphids and I had russets as well. And that bay laurel with the Jadam wetting agent literally in 2 days put the population into such a great control that what I was doing with the Korean natural farming kicked in and the plants, overcame their own stress. So I don't really, and this year I'm not using anything. I'm only using Korean natural farming, and I'm using the living soils, and that's it. I mean,
you don't really need anything else.
You don't need anything.
Clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, you don't need it.
What would you recommend instead of Fox Farm? I love their soil, but their other products suck. You can make your own. I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah, that's what we doing.
Aurora Organics, they make a pretty good bagged soil. Again, though, it's not apples to apples kind of thing. Like if you're using a bagged soil compared to like something you built and made yourself, I mean, it is a night and day difference.
Yeah.
You have the compost. So you're practically almost there, right? Maybe just try building your own soil and using like a sphagnum, pumice, rice hulls, a little bit of worm castings. Use those worms and run that as your soil. And if you set that up a few weeks beforehand, it'll be ready to go right away for your plants, and you just plant right into that as a clone. Yeah, Healing Earth. I mean, how can you say anything better than that? If you can make your own, if you can get as local as possible, and again, if you could really like understand the companies that you're buying this stuff from, there are a lot of companies out there that are OMRI certified, and I can tell you from experience when I worked at a company that we went through the process of being OMRI certified is bullshit. They never came and checked anything. It was all on our word. So just because something is OMRI certified, they did go out of their way better than another company, but the reality, at least with that program, is that they just paid money to get that logo. I mean, there's not really, as far as I know, there was no one that ever came to our facility and checked what we did, what our SOP was if we dropped compost on the ground, stuff like that. And for it to be organic, we're not supposed to, if it falls on the ground, we're not supposed to put it back in the machine. Well, I can assure you that like sometimes when mistakes were made and something fell on the ground, it was put back in the machine, I mean, so really know there's brands out there that, if you guys want to reach out to me, that I could probably like tell you offline and stuff, but I have no problem saying bullshit to Advanced Nutrients and Fox Farm and stuff because they've been ripping off new farmers.
And it's time for a paradigm shift, you guys. I mean, I'm going to tell you about what I did. Like, I have indoor beds that are 4x4, and I built them up myself. I didn't buy the fancy double-sided bags or whatever. I don't have the money to do that, so I built my own beds. And I've been gardening outside, so I used wood chips in the bottom, and I used my own soil, and I topped it with compost, and then I topped it with wood chips, and then I topped it with straw, and started inoculating with the bugs and everything, and let them kind of do the work of bringing those beds into order. And it was scary to do that because I didn't know what kind of pathogens I was bringing in. I didn't know what kind of insects I was bringing in, but I did it anyway. And my beds are just getting better and better and better and better. And the only problem that I didn't foresee, and I've learned a lot from it, is those darn pill bugs, dude. I have an overrun of pill bugs because they are, they break things down, but they also eat baby shoots, and they keep me from being able to have a very good cover crop because they're literally eating all the shoots. So I hand trapped as many of those as I could out of my beds, and that's why I have the bin I have, is because I was just taking all the critters I was trapping from my beds and moving it into that bin, and now I have that as a kind of a pre-digester.
Add some magnolia leaves. If you add some magnolia leaves to that, They'll eat that instead of the shoots.
Oh, good. God, it's been annoying. But I finally put my Muscovy ducks. I like built a little, and I moved them from bed to bed, and they literally ate all the pill bugs.
Yeah.
And I'm having cover
I like
crop
pill
come
bugs.
back up. Yeah,
I
you
think they
like
work
it.
in a fantastic relationship with the worms and the springtails. But again,
Okay,
if anything
Magnolia.
is out of control, if anything is too much, where it's almost become like an alpha,
Yeah.
then you have issues. Whether
And you
it's
just bring your next entropic level, which for you is the rabbits. Like, it's so brilliant. I am in love with this. I want the rabbits.
yeah, the rabbits are a game changer.
Oh my goodness. And that's just bringing the next level up, the next trophic level up. You're integrating that into your systems because nature wants to naturally progress towards succession. So you're bringing in these higher successional levels, and with these things like the ducks or the rabbits or the higher level insects, or yeah, it's beautiful.
And if I didn't have like HOA restrictions, I would probably start messing around with alpacas. That's as great as rabbit manure is. It's probably the best. Alpaca is probably twice as good as that. I just have never raised alpacas or anything, but
Gorgeous.
their stuff is next level. Malibu compost is definitely overrated. I don't know what they're charging anymore, but I remember that it definitely felt overpriced. And if you guys, again, do your research on that, like biodynamic farming is definitely a system, but biodynamic farming is not, like, how do I say this the right way? Biodynamic farming still has a bit of metaphysical things to it, to where if somebody as a brand is saying that they are making you a product using only biodynamic farming, that is probably one of the reasons why Tina and I experienced the issues that we did, is because they probably had a human being make a mistake. And that's, so I'm not knocking it. It's just, there's a lot of metaphysical things for that. And I think people still, even today, like, they still think like the ram's horn is something that is like really needed. And in reality, it was just what they had back then, right? To put
Right, and it does serve a function, but it's a non-transparent function, and but the Korean natural farming has every piece of tool that you'd ever gain. I mean, both systems are kind of reflective of each other, and yet I do appreciate the simplicity and the transparency behind natural farming techniques. Like, it's so simple, specific, but oh my goodness, so simple, and you're getting the same results. I mean, and then
chicken poop is filled with nitrogen, but again, that's a hot manure, so you're gonna have to wait and compost that down. I would personally use alfalfa meal instead of chicken poop for nitrogen source. And again, nitrogen is like the Goldilocks principle, right? You only want her to be right there in the middle of her nitrogen uptake, because especially if you're using like a nitrate nitrogen, she's going to eat that even in flour. So if you're pumping her full of those nitrate nitrogens, your yields are going to suffer. Your quality is going to suffer because she's still eating that nitrogen. So if you keep it more at that Goldilocks level, where you do get that kind of fade as she's starting to go into flower and turn, then you kind of know you were at that right peak to where she is still munching at it. It is being removed from the fan leaf. And then for me, I only take the fan leaves off if I feel like it would improve a bud site. So I do believe in, at least in indoor, outdoor, it's kind of silly because it doesn't matter where the sun is. Obviously, it's the same amount of sunlight, but indoor, it does matter. So I think that's where that part of that comes in too, is where you should defan things that are covering buds. But otherwise, I try to keep the plant as intact as possible. I do like the lollipop because I feel like that's improved yields. So there's a bunch of tips and tricks we could talk about at another time. That I do know is tried and true, even on like a commercial level, and lollipopping is one of them.
Cool, man. Well, have we come to a natural progression?
Yeah, 2 hours went by pretty quick.
Yeah, 2.5 maybe even.
Holy cow! Yeah, I'm surprised that my boys are upstairs and I didn't hear one peep out of them. So I'm proud
Wow.
of them.
Are you getting rain right now?
Yeah, or it's about to for
Yeah,
sure.
we're getting rain here. Well, I can't wait to come see you and visit, and let's have a chat soon. We get busy and then we.
Yeah, we might do that weekly. I
Yeah.
know Tina and I sheep compares to alpaca. It's not as good, but it's a close one. I would throw worms in that sheep compost. And if you have a bunch of chicken,
Why are alpacas next level?
because they have more than one stomach like a cow,
Oh,
and
right.
their diet is really clean for an animal. So as long
So,
as you like let them graze and do their thing,
so
uh,
goats are good.
yeah. But don't aren't goats like gross? I heard like I
No,
had a friend.
I have 4 goats.
Don't they don't they ejaculate all the time?
No, so no, because you get a wether. So I have one male that's a wether, so he's fixed. So yeah,
Oh,
you wanted the billy
yeah,
goat's a different. The billy goat's a different thing. Yeah, that's different. But they're amazing. They're smarter than dogs, and I walk them twice a day, and they respond to my nose, and they're really amazing animals. And it's easier to keep than an alpaca. I think alpacas are fairly sensitive to predation.
alpacas are more like dogs too. Like they
Oh,
have like,
okay.
little personalities and
No, goats don't eat everything. That's such you guys. Oh my God, I think witches owned goats because they've been sort of people have so many misconceptions about goats. Um, they're like natural medicine finders. They will only eat the things that are at the perfect medicinal quality. So you can actually, as an herbalist, do a lot of figuring out harvest times and at peak times to harvest using a goat as an indicator. They're amazing creatures.
big-haired poppy cow would be next level if you could find like an organic source. The problem is that even in Malibu, that supposedly was that way. Uh, I had heard that like that bovine growth hormone somehow got into their stuff. Um, and as far as I understand, anything that's being done dairy wise, um, they always use that thing. They always use that growth hormone,
Mm.
unless it's like an organic. And I don't really know an organic, pure organic dairy cow manure source. So if you guys do know one, please let us know. I'm all
Yeah.
about using different sources. It's not like it's not being biased or anything. It's just the fact that like if you can't source it, or if you know like using Malibu could potentially fuck up your entire crop, then I'm not going to
Yeah.
spend full retail to buy their product and then just to have diversity. That's not worth it to me.
Yeah. Know your farmer, man. Know your grower.
Yeah.
Walk
Horse
the
manure
field.
is best as long as you take the time to compost it, and I would vermicompost that. Again, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that horse manure and cow manure can have in it that if you're growing where your product is tested, you could fail. Microbial testing or like what do they call that? Just pathogen, You fail pathogen.
Pathogen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, I gotta get back to I'm working and stuff. But Tina, I really enjoyed this, and I think
I did too.
you
Thank
know
you, Bryan.
the way that you and I this is how we would talk if you and I were just sitting across the table. So I
Yeah.
think that if people want to hear us discuss that, I'm open to doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are be available. I make them available both on Facebook and on my IGTV account. Now, we did highlight a competition at the very beginning of this. So make sure you go back and kind of revisit that because it's going to be pretty cool. And Bryan sweetened the pot with some seeds from
From Duke
Dominion.
Diamond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Duke
So
Diamond. So we're going to do
shout out,
that.
love, lots of love for him. He's
Love.
not where he needs to be, and he is not with his family. So let's hope in time that he's able to get back home.
Yeah, Let's put that out into the universe and come together around community. So I'm going to want your little 3-second DMs of your microbial, whatever microbial little wonders you have going out there. And anyway, you'll get the highlights. And I'll also post sort of a highlight of this, of what the competition is going to be like, and participate so you can get a lot of free cool stuff from us.
Yeah, that's what we're about, giving back.
Give